agree, and I support him in the voting. In fact, I would definitely continue with early voting. I think it's very key. In fact, we just had the April 5th, and we had a special election, and I was inquiring, are they going to allow early voting? They said no, so definitely early voting. I think it's important. I think people should be able to fit it into their schedules, so I would definitely support that. The other thing, probably the number 2 thing for me, many of you know I'm a chemical engineer from WashU, and Missouri is getting $9 billion for infrastructure. I think we need more engineers in the House of Representatives looking at how we're spending this money, spending it wisely, not just for today and these myopic views, but long-term views. Are we coordinating how we're doing infrastructure work? When you look at the roads and you see a brand new road and then a patchwork in it, was someone thinking, were we really coordinating that? So I think coordinating within our state departments, making sure that we're looking at infrastructure, and we're probably starting with, can we coordinate and make sure that we're spending this money wisely in our timelines, in our budgets, and in our project plans, all of the things that I'm good at doing.
I can speak for Mr. Green since he's not here to give us 3 responses. So again, Tim Person and Dr. Alan Green is running for Missouri State Auditor. He is not running in the Democratic primary because he's already been named the Democratic nominee for auditor. So we don't have any real trouble tonight. We still need money though. So Alan's primary focus is we have a state that's being controlled almost exclusively by the Republicans. And the auditor is the only independent or Democratic voice in City Hall, excuse me, not City Hall, but Jefferson City. We need to continue that independence. We need to make sure that we really have somebody not being party-centric, but being people-centric and making sure that the tax dollars of the state of Missouri are being watched as they're supposed to be and spent where they're supposed to be spent. Number 2, he wants to make it more accessible. So he wants to make sure that everybody in Missouri knows that they have access to the assessor's office. And number 3 is he wants to strengthen the state's very weak whistleblower law so that when people see things, they can say things. And those are the 3 primary focuses of this effort.
Okay, well, I will go next. I don't necessarily think I have 3 things, but I'm going to give my spiel because I may have to walk out because I have another candidate form that I have to give before they adjourn. I'm State Senator Carla May, and I'll just say, my primary thing that I have worked on since I've been at the Capitol, which will be 12 years this year, I have been on appropriation. I was on budget, and I was on appropriations for been 11 years on the budget. And so I make sure that we get dollars into the community to the different agencies that are supposed to provide service to the communities. Not only do I make sure that we get the dollars there, I also check for metrics, making sure that they are doing what they say they're doing in funding. Another thing that I've worked on is criminal justice reform. So at the same time, it's a balance. It's a scale of balance. We got victims and we got criminals, but we don't want, you got low level and high level. And we're spending a whole lot of money feeding and incarcerating people. And so what we're trying to do is turn these jails into boarding schools so that people the recidivism is high. The reason the recidivism is high is because we don't have corporations willing to hire people who are felons. So we have to be better at getting people back in society where they're able to earn a living so that they can feed, clothe, and house themselves. If not, we will continue to pay for them over and over again. And I don't know about you. Now they gotta say, I'm a Democrat, but I do not like taxes and all these fees that keep going up. So I'm a conservative in that way, maybe because I was a single mom and I had to be very tight. So those are the things that I work on. That's 2 of the major things. If I think of a 3rd one, I'll tell you. But I also want to say that I'm hosting a series of town hall meetings. There's 3 that are coming up. The one tomorrow is at the World's Fair Pavilion in Forest Park. I thought everybody can find that because we all circle around Forest Park. It's just from 5:30 to 8:30, but it won't last to 8:30 because I only do an hour. I don't like to talk long. But I want to give you some information. They dumped a lot of money into different buckets across the state. The governor did. And they made them grants. And so you have to apply for this money for businesses, non-for-profits. We got $412 million went into the DNR, Department of Natural Resources, for water mediation and things like that, for municipalities. Even if you're a developer or building something, they even have what they call community reinvestment funds. So there are grants. They're going to be putting up, the requirements for you to apply for those funding. I want to tell you about that information. So that's why I'm coming, giving handouts, telling you the websites to go to, because when I looked at the 2022 budget, I was like, a lot of those funds weren't expended. We had to reappropriate some of them. I'm like, people don't know. So, we're going to get out and tell you about those funds. So the World's Fair Pavilion, 5:30 to 8:30. We're doing Epiphany Lutheran Church. Am I saying that right there? Mm-hmm.
Epiphany, yeah.
Epiphany. And we're going to do that on Friday. What time did I say? 5:30 on Friday. And then we have one Saturday at Woles Community Center on Kings Highway and Dr. Martin Luther King. And that one will be at 10 a.m. in the morning to 12. So those are the things that I like to do. Information. Thank you.
So I'll go next. Craig Hill, Congresswoman Bush's team. I think by now we all kind of know the Congresswoman's platform kind of like the back of our hand. Obviously, criminal justice reform, Medicare for all, so that no person is going without health care, so that no health care isn't on the basis of our jobs, of our employment structure. Those are a couple of top items, but I think first and foremost, it starts to bring in investment back into our communities. Over the first couple of months of her tenure in office, Congresswoman Bush organized within Congress as a freshman, which this is kind of unheard of, to be able to bring $700 million back to the city of St. Louis, to be able to put to use for people of the city, for the mayor's office, for everyone on kind of down. For reference, that $700 million compared to somewhere like some districts within like New York City has gotten within the past 3 years, here's nearly triple the amount. So somewhere like New York's 11th district, where the dollar doesn't quite go as far. They have received, through two different members of Congress, through a Democrat representative and a Republican representative, about $227 million. So for someone like Congresswoman Bush to go in essentially day one and bring nearly triple that number back as a freshman in Congress is transformative for our community. So I'd say that'd be one of the top issues, is continuing that organizing work in Congress to be able to bring the funds that we need so that local organizers, local elected officials, and people on the ground can keep doing the work that they need to get done.
So, Mrs. Thompson obviously does not have legislative powers, but so she primarily focuses on the taxpayer experience as it relates to renewing and obtaining business licensure. So she's working to bring new paid online and in-person opportunities to kind of streamline the licensing process for businesses here in the city of St. Louis. Also continue to offer forums that give access to small minority and disadvantaged businesses to be able to access some of the opportunities that the city has in letting contracts. And I think finally one of the things that she's working very hard to do is to make sure that the network of departments in the city are trying to work together to make that customer service experience easier.
Greg Daly, I'm the collector of revenue for the city of St. Louis, and as your collector, I think it's very important for the collector's office. We collect about $700 million a year. Various taxes throughout the city, earnings tax, personal property, real estate, water, and trash. And it's imperative that the collector's office try to do that in a professional and courteous way. We have established a process called Pay It St. Louis, which enables people to pay their bills a lot easier than times have been in the past. It makes the life a whole lot easier. Pay online, pay any time of the day, 7 days a week, at any time your little heart desires to pay those taxes. We happen to be there for you. So it is something that we take great pride in, is trying to make paying your taxes, which is not sexy, which is not in everybody's first thing on their mind, but if it is on your mind, we're going to be there for you. So Pay It St. Louis. I would ask everyone to utilize that particular program. It makes life easier. From another position in the city, the collector of revenue has combined forces with some non-for-profit agencies. Eastern Legal Services of Missouri, Park Central, Prosperity Connection. And what we have done is the collector of revenue has joined with these individuals to establish a group called RETAF. And what that does, it enables people who are struggling to pay their taxes. Now you have to own your house. You can't have a mortgage on it. But the purpose of the program is that you don't lose your house because you're having a cash flow problem that particular year. The group we have established the RETAP program that individuals are able to tap into to pay their taxes, and then along with the current administration, Mayor Jones was kind enough to work together with us, and we have gotten $500,000 from the city of St. Louis in order to utilize this particular program. Folks, what it does is if somebody who's lived on your block for 20, 25 years, 30 years, and they become part of the community, there is no sense in getting their house being sold because they can't pay their taxes. So it is something we've established, and it is working out very well.
I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Sounds good. Hey, I'm Michael Butler, Recorder of Deeds for the City of St. Louis and Party Chair for the Missouri Democratic Party. I'm here as a Recorder of Deeds, so today it's so loud. So chill. Do I need to say anything else?
The other thing we're doing is top 3 things you're trying to get done.
Gosh, man, top 3.
But you don't have to be on the spot. If you want to think about it, somebody else can raise it.
Oh, I got 3 things right here that in the past 4 years. And once again, I'm here as a Recorder of Deeds. There's 50 questions I can answer as party chairman. I can do that later or at another meeting, hopefully, because we got some better people than me here, like Collector Reverend Greg Daly. And I don't know why Senator Barbara Washington's still here, but good to have her still. I saw her 3 hours ago, like, I'm just happy you're still here. Yes. Oh, she's job shop. She's learning how to do the job.
Well, Mike having the chair of the party since places he doesn't want to go.
That was touche. Very good. So we have 3 things we've been focused on. Specifically, one is opening what we're calling the Recorder's Assistance Center. Our office is going through a physical renovation in making the space within the office more, like say 2021. The Collective Revenue did that about 5-6 years ago, and we're trying to follow suit and make our office is. We want to make it more like a Sprint store, a T-Mobile store, a space that you're used to at retail. Our motto is really. Government doesn't have to be inefficient. Government can be just as efficient as the private sector. We want you to be able to feel like you're at a private sector office, you're in an office, and we're hoping that we've got phase 1 done and phase 2 should be done in the next four months. We're going to have a naming ceremony and the name of that office will be the Sharon Quigley Carpenter Reporters Assistance Center, named after the longest serving reporter in the history of the state of Missouri, and the longest serving Democrat elected official in the history of the state of Missouri, and Sharon Quigley Carpenter. I'm very excited about that. Secondly, we've had a focus and we've been very successful on improving online services. So when you don't come to office, we also have a saying that in 2022, you shouldn't have to come to city government to access your city government. And we have improved our online access and online services greatly. You can now get a marriage license, a birth certificate, or a death certificate fully online. You don't have to come to our office. You can do it in your underwear at home if you like to, or fully clothed, whichever one is better for you. And we've been very successful at that. With that, our third thing is increasing revenue. We've been very blessed by improving online services especially, but also having better retail services by increasing revenue on average every year by $500,000 in our office. We're on track to improve revenue by $700,000 this year. When I first became Recorder of Deeds, the Recorder of Deeds office was bringing in $2.6 million in revenue and spending $2.9 million in revenue. We were taking $300,000 a year from the city government. We now are on point this year to make $3.3 million in revenue by keeping our budget fairly flat at about $3 million. We've had some variable costs went up, so we're giving back $300,000 to the city. We're very proud of that. So we believe that our improvement in customer service, from our in-person customer services to online services, it's a reason for seeing increased revenue in our office.
Awesome. I can go for Representative Behringer. So her top priority is advocating for the city of St. Louis. She was a former alderwoman for 14 years in the 16th Ward, so local government is incredibly important to her. And as I'm sure all of you know, Democrats are in the super minority. I know for a fact that the state senator and other representative here know that. So working to get good legislation across the board, and then also prevent bad legislation from getting across the board as well. And advocating for the St. Louis, there's a ton of legislation that I'll have her send to Jean, and she can send to all of you on some of the legislation she's helped. Secondly, that's kind of 1 and 2, advocating for the city of St. Louis, and then working across the aisle, but also with fellow Democrats to advocate for that legislation. It's hard work being in the super minority, so working to do that. And then thirdly, is helping elect Democrats across the state. It's incredibly important to expand that minority so we can hopefully grow the majority, as I'm sure our state party chair will advocate for. But that's really a priority of hers, to get better legislation across the board. So thank you.
Thank you all. Before we continue, I forgot to make an announcement earlier that restrooms are that way. So if you do need to use the restroom, feel free. It's towards the door, and then just go down that hall and you'll see it at the end. All right, I'm sorry.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm here to talk for Lucas Coons for U.S. Senate. I'll just tell you that the premise of this campaign for U.S. Senate is to break the grip of corporate power on the U.S. government. And so that breaks down in a lot of different ways for us. We want to stand up for everyday Missourians so that they can take power and call the shots in this country. And so what that means for us is breaking our country's addiction to fossil fuels, bringing investment to Missouri and the rest of the Midwest, creating the next generation of energy jobs right here in Missouri. There's no reason we can't do that. That helps us, obviously, in the struggle against climate change, but also helps us break Europe's addiction to Russia's fossil fuels so they can't keep funding Putin's war machine in Ukraine. That also means we can take the mantle of leaders in climate change fighting technology, so electric vehicles and renewable energy from China, so we can export our own renewable energy to the rest of the world. It also means that we can, with one more vote in the Senate, hopefully 2 more, we can abolish the filibuster and protect abortion rights, and we can vote for universal health care, and do all sorts of things. So essentially, pull the pin, throw Lucas in, and let's go for it. So there you go.
Thank you. I think that was all of the representatives or representatives of representatives. Next question.
Sure. Defunding and re-envisioning and transforming our public safety in the city of Missouri is becoming the biggest public safety issue. Not smash and grabs, not drug-related crimes. It's truly the amount of budget that seems to be going wasted with our police department. And that's at the city and the state level, really. Every elected official should be participating or learning about the defunding, re-envisioning, and transforming campaigns plural, that are happening in our local area. I wanted to know from each of our elected officials and current candidates, what are they doing in their roles to participate in this DRT type of campaign? And if you don't happen to be a part of it yet but want to know more about it, I will follow up with you to talk about it.
I can talk a little bit about that just from the Lucas Coons campaign. Lucas talks a lot about how in his time in Afghanistan and Iraq, he would work with police squads on what was essentially a nation-building project. And what that means is that you took a bunch of 18-year-olds who were trained to do one thing, and you asked them to do something that they were not trained to do. Win hearts and minds, build infrastructure, and do all sorts of stuff that they were trained to do one thing: just kill, to be dominant on the battlefield. I think Lucas sees this as there's two struggles. Obviously, there's the fact that we have public safety issues in the city of St. Louis. I was an Uber driver before I joined this campaign, and I got shot at on the highway. So we got issues. I know one of our county councilmen also got shot at. I think it was Ernie Travis. So we got problems. So we need investment in our communities to pull people into the community. So for Lucas, that means bringing investment to the Midwest. That's a huge thing. So that means for him, from a perspective of like providing universal child care, pre-K programs, after-school programs, things like that, making public education more accessible and affordable for everybody, so that people have access to a way in to jobs and the community. From the other perspective, it's maybe don't make police responsible for mental health. Don't make police responsible for every single thing that we ask them to do necessarily. They have a job to keep us safe. Let's just make them responsible for that instead of all the things that they're often asked to do. So.
For Congresswoman Bush, I feel like, again, this is an issue where everybody kind of knows exactly where she stands. I think one of the most transformative things that she's done within the 117th Congress is bring forth the People's Response Act, which starts to kind of lay the groundwork on what it looks like to do exactly what Jake is speaking on, about bringing those resources to social service workers, bring those services to after-school programs, and really starting to lay the groundwork to bring the conversation around to demilitarizing our communities and showing what that looks like. There's no reason why. We're still having to have some of the same conversations we had essentially almost a decade ago, with tanks rolling down the streets anytime a protest pops up, when people are just kind of advocating for their lives and their well-being. That's money that could all go into our social service programs. There's no reason at this point, when we're living in the year of 2022, why we don't have social service workers that are responding to mental health crisis. Because whether it be you, your broader self individually, or someone that you're close to, we all know what it's like to have a loved one that's going through a mental health crisis. And we all know what it's like to dial 911 or ask for help and have that kind of second guess go through your head. Have that kind of second thought go through your mind about what is going to happen on the other side of this. But what happens on the other side of that needs to be an ambulance, needs to be a social service worker, needs to be someone that is specialized in caring for that person in that exact situation. So when we're talking about whether it be defund the police, refund the community, however you want to phrase it, that's what it boils down to, is having the right person for the right job at the right time and bringing that investment to make sure that is happening.
I can speak for Representative Behringer. So, like I said, she is an advocate for the city of St. Louis and local government. She's been fighting, there's a lot of ARPA dollars out there that really the Democrats had to fight tooth and nail to have that money allocated to municipalities and the state to reinvest in those communities. She certainly wants there to be police, to be properly trained, to have a higher wage, so we get higher quality and better trained force to do their job, solve crime. But as Jake said, really investing in the city and local government to make sure to get at the root of those issues and the root of crime.
And I would jump in and say, you know, I'm an MBA from Kellogg, and I've been a businessman for 25 years. I was at the Federal Reserve Bank yesterday talking to some of the economists about fundamentally what are some of the reasons that we're going through these problems. The pandemic exposed some things, a lot of folks left the workforce, but fundamentally we're looking at baby boomers that are exiting the workforce, and we've got a lot of younger folks behind them that we need to train, we need to invest in education. And what I actually want to push for is making sure that we even maybe pay our community colleges performance bonuses. The community colleges are really at the forefront of these young minds and young people trying to choose their careers. The community colleges are in the best place to help guide them, direct them to careers that are going to be profitable, careers that are in demand today. So if the community college is doing a great job, their graduates are seeing career progression, salary progression over the next 4 or 5 years, the community college should get a bonus for that. We should pay for that type of performance. So I think these things, this is the type of investment. This is the way we look at where are the problems, how do we solve these things, and how do we pay for performance over longer periods of time.
I think the only thing that, as the collector of revenue, it's not a legislative position, but I think that folks that are in positions as myself as the collector of revenue, it's very important that we make sure that we collect the necessary tax dollars that are necessary to make sure that different agencies are funded properly. The earnings tax here in the city of St. Louis is something that generates $250 million a year. That goes directly into general revenue. With the good Senator Carla May and myself, we obviously fought very hard for that to stay in place during this current legislative session. There were a lot of people chomping at the bit there to get rid of that. But as the collector of revenue, it's just important that our office make sure that the taxes are collected so they can be distributed to the necessary agencies that need the proper financing.
So in Jeff City, the conversation is gun violence is kind of an uphill battle for two reasons. Most of the 163 members are from rural areas. They're not from the urbans. And Springfield has kind of moved itself into the urban. So if any conversation about guns and gun control are just regular smart gun legislation, like not allowing anybody with a domestic charge pending or prior to own a gun. If a child accesses your gun in your home and hurts himself or others, it should be some level of a class, I think a class D misdemeanor. So if we're not going to be allowed to make those kind of those pieces of legislation, then we have to do it on the back end through the budget. So myself, Senator Carla May, have made mirror legislation this year in the budget, and we got about $18 million in ARPA money coming back to the district, which is a huge deal. And then I asked for another $2.5 million in a literacy program for after school. I think that is truly the heart of the violence that we're, the gun violence, feeling like you don't have opportunity and feeling like you don't have options and feeling like, shit, I can't read and I'm in the 5th grade. It's downhill from here. I'm in St. Louis public schools or whatever. Putting our kids in a position where they feel like they do have an opportunity and they can read in the 3rd grade, and we're not teaching them tests. We're teaching them on their personal best. My daughter runs track, and she's so young. She's 11. When she runs track, they don't, she's obviously not running for an Olympic world record. They do PR, personal records. So they're not training my daughter to run for an Olympic record. They're training her to do better every week. That's how we need to teach our kids, and like that is there's a direct line from that to violence. Jimmy Edwards famously said one time that 80% of the violence that happens, of the crime that happens in the city of St. Louis happens between 3 and 8 o'clock. So the $2.5 million that we got in the budget for his literacy class and the 18 million in ARPA money, I think those are ways that you fight against the Republican agenda, and you kind of take a back door and side door.
Recorder of Deeds office, do you have any creative
You guys, we're just recording deeds.
So I deal with recorder of deeds a lot because I'm an attorney, and one thing that I've noticed that with housing insecurity, it happens all the time upon death. And there just aren't nearly enough beneficiary deeds on records to make sure that houses actually stay titled in families.
That's very true.
And so that's my one offer to you, is that if there could be something that we do around problem properties, neighborhoods that need to stay owner occupied, that would be it, just making sure that beneficiary deeds are.
That's very helpful. I'll say one thing that I think we could do better at is, there are several things, but I don't know, promise you, the thing we do better is education. Quite frankly, we were able to do well in a campaign for recorder deeds by telling people what the recorder deeds does.
Right.
And you'd be surprised, like a beneficiary deed or just a quick claim deed or an offering, places folks can go online and access those documents quickly, can go a very long way. And, thanks for that. We can do a better job.
Is this round robin or how are we doing?
You got it, yeah.
I was just wondering, because a lot of the issues that you all brought up over the years I've dealt with or faced or seen before, either in St. Louis City or St. Louis County or the state of Missouri. That's why I was wondering about that. I'm Alan Green, for those that do not know. You all mind if I stand up a second? I'm at the age now, I can't sit down too long. Excuse me. I'm Alan Green, I'm running for state auditor. And I have a simple goal. Very simple. I want Missouri to go green. Very simple. I want Missouri to go green. That means that every tax dollar that you have, I want to be that watchdog to watch those tax dollars. That green money is yours. It's not mine. Well, some of it is. I pay taxes too. But you, and you, I want to watch your money. When you all mentioned this educational process over the years, I remember working for Buzz Westfall and Charlie Dooley and going to work for the Governor Jay Nixon and running the Office of Equal Opportunity, that agency there, and then switching over under the Director of Social Services and dealing with those problems. Because I heard people talk about social services and stuff in there. And I was dealing with actually community development block grant money and making a recommendation of who would get that pot of money for the city of St. Louis. I don't even know if you all know that. I made that decision. Yeah, that was me. All right. That was about 10 years ago, so again, a lot of that has transitioned. But what I stand here saying today is that everything that we're talking about, from the educational point to making sure that money is being taken care of, one of the things is that we have one person right now at that particular level, which is Nicole Galloway. We have our governor, which is Republican, our lieutenant governor is Republican, our secretary of state, our treasurer, they're all Republican. We have one voice right now, and that's Nicole Galloway. We don't want to lose that voice. We want another person, a Democrat, to be in that seat. In fact, I'm gonna put it real blunt. We want Alan Green to be in that seat. All right? I'll be real blunt. As I travel the state, like yesterday I was in Kansas City, and I was talking to the firefighters, and they asked me some important questions about, of course, the subpoena power of the auditor. And we talked about that. We talked about political subdivisions. We talked about those things. We talked about making sure that the money is supposed to be going where it's supposed to go. Last week I was in Chicago, and I was talking about the infrastructure money. I was actually one of the headliners at the conference,
talking about infrastructure money and the money that's coming down from the federal government, and explaining to people how that money is going to be used. Yeah. I've been speaking all over the country how that money is going to be used. Because there's another component, because people really don't realize that the infrastructure policy that we have in place only covers 10% of our nation. 10%. That means we still have roads, bridges, infrastructure, broadband, all of that stuff that we're talking about and more. That's only 10% of our nation. So we also, I've brought up, and I've been leading the charge on an infrastructure bank. Anybody ever heard of infrastructure bank? One person. Very good. All righty. The infrastructure bank actually has been used 4 times in our nation. George Washington, we're talking about Madison, we're talking about Abraham Lincoln, and we're talking about FDR. And it expired, it was a sunset in 1957. We haven't used it again. We need to use it again because 90% of our infrastructure is not being taken care of. We need to know that. You need to know that and how that money's being spent, who's spending that money, how that money's being allocated. We need to know these things, okay? If we're going to move forward, training, manufacturing, all went overseas. If we do an infrastructure bank, we're talking about now bringing manufacturing back to the United States. If we do an infrastructure bank, we're talking about now bringing all this training and unions and all this stuff and putting people back to work at quality wages. That will get taken care of. If you study and you go back and look at the history of how we built America, that's how we got through World War II. That's how we got through it, all right? We would not have been able to do any of those things, create the factories, win the war, all those things if we didn't have these mechanisms in place. I want to be that guy to lead that charge, saying in Missouri, we have a surplus of money. We do. Now we're going to get another pot of money coming from the infrastructure bank, and I want to be the guy to watch that money. I want to be that guy. I want to make sure that those sweetheart deals are being done. You see, I have the experience already working in Jefferson City, running the agency, looking at all 16 departments and how that money has been spent. And had to keep up with all that data from hiring to contracts going out. Had to do that for 3 years. I have that experience. I have that experience. I've also been a private business owner, and then my specialty is bonding and financing projects all over the country. I say that again. I bond and finance projects all over the country right now. I'm also a CFO, which is the Missouri Minority Business Development Agency, helping minority businesses grow. My specialty, again, is bonding and financing, okay? I look at numbers all day long. I look at projects all day long. I look at proposals all day long. I look at all of that. So one of the things that Nicole, when we had this discussion, she is endorsing me. Now, I also used to be a St. Louis police officer. So when I was riding through the area, I said, oh man, I remember that. How did I get lost? I should have known that. All right? Yes, to see, I wasn't a police officer 30 years ago, and that's how, at this particular age, I was looking at, wow. But experience is what I'm standing here saying. Experience. Been there and done that on a lot of these things and a lot of these questions that are coming up. A lot of people, when we're talking about the training piece, a lot of these things were happening in St. Louis County when we're talking about the unions, the trades, and getting people involved. That's how the Med Center. Anybody know what the Med Center is? Med Center. Anybody else know what the Med Center is? 2 people. The Med Center is located between St. Louis County, right there on the border in Wellston, that teaches the trades. Funded by St. Louis County, free education. You all know that? That used to be my baby. I was very proud of that. It's a huge facility right there where it was free education. The community colleges is involved in that. You got all of these trades involved in that. Technical training right there, from IT to skills right there. But one of the things is that we don't utilize it the way we should. It's right there in our back pocket. All right? Now, I'm preaching to the choir now. Matter of fact, I have one rule when I speak. Please smile. Some of you all stop smiling. I have a simple rule. At least smile when I talk. I could be doing a bad job, but at least smile. Pretend that I'm doing good. All right? Yes, ma'am.
I do. I do
You
want
better smile. That's
to
what I meant to read.
start to
I
wrap
outraged you.
up. I do want to start to wrap up the question and answer session. I have one final thing that any of you can throw out thoughts on. As a ward organization, we try to build power of the people in our community, right? And you all are building power with us and in legislative areas and city offices. And what we need to know is what we can do to help you build that power for us. So ideas on that.
I would like to start. So the 24th Ward is my most difficult ward. Myself, Senator May, have created kind of a vertical operation with like you guys being able to say something and it actually being able to make an impact in Jeff City. We have great relationships with all 5 of our aldermen, 24th, 18th, 22nd, 28th, and the 26th. The 24th, it is both good to be independent, but also difficult to keep up with independent minds.
Can I just let people know what you're referring to?
Yes.
We are an open ward organization. We vote, our membership votes and endorses based on our membership, right? So we don't take directly from the central committee to endorse. So that's what he's referring to. Go for it.
But also compound that with there's so many different neighborhoods in the district that like when I'm in Jeff City and I come home, I'm trying to hit these ward meetings. I'm trying to figure out what's being said and what's important and how it relates to legislation. But you got the Clifton group, and you got the movie theater people. And then you got
High point.
You got the, you know what I mean? And it's just like, all right, cool. But like there at some point there has to be one unified voice that says, okay, well we got all these people together and all these different pockets, and this is what we've decided. There's no real moment of clarity with the 24th often. And for the guy that is truly trying to listen, there's so many people speaking, like I just gotta kind of pick out what I can and kind of try to take that back.
Well, we have meetings monthly.
Yes, yes.
Third Wednesday of the month.
Yes, but 8 of you do. Like,
I think that depends,
there are literally
yeah.
4 different organizations inside of this 24th that have monthly meetings, and I kind of got to pick one, right? Because
Right.
some of them fall on the same day, and then I have to go service the other portions of the district. So for me, if we could streamline it some kind of way,
Right.
or
Actually, we've already done that. A lot of the neighborhood associations are only meeting bi-monthly.
Yeah, bi-monthly or quarterly.
Yeah.
So you're referring to neighborhood organizations, and we're like
Yes,
the
right, that's-
ward
that's-
organization.
but also,
Yeah.
like I said, combine that with
Yeah.
the fact that you guys are open ward in the 24th, and you don't take the endorsement straight from the Democratic committee.
Right.
Right. So
Oh, hell no, we're independent.
Right? So that is both giving the curse for those of us who are like actually trying to be effective. Back, you know, because we don't have the luxury of being in City Hall down the street.
Right.
So it's a different kind of disconnect when it comes to the voice of the people. Whereas in the 26th is very clear, the 28th is very clear, the 24th and 18th, because they kind of have a monthly meeting. Now there are other neighborhood meetings that go on. They're a little bit easier to keep up with, and they're kind of a trickle-down tier of already what's kind of being said at the top. But they just kind of speak more specifically to like their community gardens or whatever that may be. But for me, like I said, I sometimes frantically call Brett and just like, yo, what is going on over there? Because I really don't know right now.
Right.
You know, you get caught up in 4 or 5 months of legislation out there, and you come home and you're like, all right, cool, hit me with everything I need to know. And he's just like, we got a little bit over here, a little bit over there. So
like a bulletin or something of like a little bit from everyone.
that would be awesome. Like anything like that, where like we don't have to kind of chase information. Because I mean, this is a conversation that me and Carlos had on multiple occasions, where it's like, well, we want to do this, and we think that Dogtown will really like this, but it's just like, well, that part of Dogtown will really like that. Then let's be clear, like, you know what I'm saying? The other part, Dogtown is pretty old school, and like probably want to talk to them first. Like, you know what I mean? So,
I mean, we are an area of transition for sure in that respect.
without doubt.
We're a borderland of
Absolutely. And so, like, they're now, even since I began running, when I first started running, there was a lot of old school labor, and, you know, they get home by 5 in a neighborhood bar by 7 because they already got supper on the table. Now there's a lot of first time homeowner families in Dogtown, and I'm like, I'm trying to figure out who they are and which way they lean, and like it is not the very blue collar Dogtown that it used to be. So, yeah.
All right, try to figure out some way to send a cohesive message.
Your question was, how do we help you, or you said
How do we help
us?
you all?
Yeah, how
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm selfish in this one. All right.
More cohesive message for me would be super helpful.
Okay.
Good. I think for me it would be doing more actions. One thing we talk about to board meetings across the city and the state, and I think you guys do this already. Not just having information meetings, but having action meetings too, and making sure that we're informed about that, we can be there. That both empowers people and helps us to be in the community more. And our ward organizations have typically been spaces for information, and we're seeing less people show up because they can get that here now. Like, there's not much reason for folks to show up to meet me and Greg here, because they follow us on Facebook every day. And like Greg's posting twice, I'm posting like twice a week. So he's probably twice a day. So they got a lot of information, but what they don't have is a direct connection or an action from us. So like phone bank or Canvas, that's actually helpful to us and to you, and that's something that I've been looking forward to. And of course, any invite would be good. The other thing that some organizations do is they do those things and they don't invite us, and then they say, well, where were you? You missed the phone bank. Oh man, I was at the other phone bank. Somebody said. So just inviting and those action items are what we're very, very much.
But from Mrs. Thompson's perspective, what our office is primarily responsible for is the licensing of businesses in the city of St. Louis. So we are constantly engaged in trying to get information out to the community. So having forums in the ward where she could come and spell out to individuals what types of business opportunities are there for a large manufacturer all the way down to someone who's trying to run a home-based business. Getting the information that a person who's actually running a business from home who makes less than $100,000 gets a lower license fee annually than some of the other businesses. She's also in charge of enforcing that business licenses are placed in proper positions for those who want to operate a business. So the community giving us the information for those unfortunately bad actors who are out there who haven't gone through the process that they should go through to level the playing field for everyone who's out there trying to conduct business and have a successful business. We need to have that information so that we can engage those individuals to make sure they become compliant so that those tax dollars then can be used to go to the various departments and agencies that you all been discussing here today. So that engagement is one thing. Ironically, we're meeting here in a union hall, so to speak, and she has a great partnership with the unions. They call us all the time and say, these guys are from out of town, we know they don't have a business license, and so we engage that to make sure that those people who come in, which then again, they end up having to pay fees to the collector revenue. So there's other fees there that are also collected. So that would be being more engaged with us on the compliance and then opportunities.
Just one more thing quickly, in regards to Jeff City. One thing that is effective, and I look at just being there and pinpointing the legislation that moves you, whatever it may be. There's obviously a huge spectrum there. Almost 3,000 bills filed this year. But it does mean something when I have constituents come up and they speak on a bill or they testify against the bill because it's egregious and it's one of the many that they've offered that is ridiculous. So just being there, I mean, if you guys get a couple cars and come on up to the Capitol, I mean, obviously, I set it out for my people. I give you guys tours, the whole deal. I try to give you incentive to come back. It's a beautiful building. It's gorgeous. They do tours. It's all the things. But sometimes that is the extra step that we need. You know what I mean? Like first of all, I praise you guys back home, the Matt Sissels of the world, the Jeans of the world. Like you guys do this for free, and like you really bust your ass doing it, and I genuinely appreciate that. Seeing these faces in Jeff City is another tier, and it is extremely effective. When I can say, listen, I had 15 of my constituents come down about this bill from my district, not Missourians. Like these are people that carry in my district, and that means something in those, because the game is relationships. So when I'm saying that to somebody who I consider a friend, and I'm like, look, man, I had constituents come up. They understand that this is important to me coming back to Jeff City if I don't slam dunk this. And so they're more willing to have those conversations and to bring. So just being there is really important, guys.
So Jordan and I will show up and email it.
All right. I'll give you a tour.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll have lunch.
I have a question that's been bothering me since this whole thing I'm a ground guy. I work, right now, this is still the 24th Ward, the 4th and 5th precinct. When do we get precinct maps? We got an election in 60 days, right? We need to get the ground game together, folks. So I need to know how these precincts are gonna break down in this 4th new ward so we can get the ground game going. I think that's something that everybody in here should be interested in. Where do we got to light a fire to get some answers on this? Because we need to get it rolling. Come on, Mr. Butler.
Everybody looks at me. Yeah, this is one that's not recorded, I guess.
Share
the precinct map is going to come from the Board of Elections. So, and unfortunately, as a party, we draw the districts, state legislative districts, and the alderman draw the alderman district. But the actual directors, especially the Republican directors, draw some precincts. They're not completed yet. So let's talk about. I can send an email out here and say, hey, Gary, when did you? I totally agree with that. We just released as a state party. We finally got to finalize. We got all the information from the DNC and then the local all the current state legislative maps, state senate, and some crossover counties with that. The precincts are in the county and the city are not done yet.
Well, here's the strength. For what we have in these wards down here, we get enough votes. We cancel out 3 counties upstate.
I totally agree.
You know, we got power here.
Yes, we do.
We know neighbors, and that's where this thing comes down.
Yes.
You know where you gotta, okay, this guy had a Biden-Harris sign back there. I got this shit memorized, okay? I know who my neighbors are. So that's about what it is. Okay, you're good. I know these folks when they come over to Mason School to vote. So we're strong.
Absolutely.
And we can offset a lot of that crap out there. That's how we help you where you're at.
Yeah, I agree. If I could help with the ground game part, you say your ground, I would say it's the remedy and solution right now is that we have the old precincts are still in effect.
So is that August? Is that how it's going to set for the August election?
If I had to guess, no. There will be precincts drawn before the August election because those precincts have to be with a polling location and be ready. So in the next month or so, you see that. But if you want to organize between the next month, I mean, there is enough Band-Aid that the Central Committee and organizations get for free to go ahead and start to organize for those folks. We already have what your ward organization is. You can pull that down without having an incorrect precinct number and still get to those individuals.
In the new 4th, it's not going to change. What we're doing is we're picking up like 2 or 3 precincts from down in the 23rd, and they're coming up. And other than that, we're not going to see a whole lot of change. But is the line going to be Clifton or is it going to be China?
You can hear me right. You can talk right into the forget the line. Just organize.
Just get them out.
The importance of the organization, this is my opinion, is that all this new top R and top P nonsense is really killing the Democratic Party in St. Louis City. So we have to work now twice and 3 times twice as hard to make sure that we are heard on those days because there is no more representation really.
See this guy right here? He's my mentor in this. This is one of the original shit disturbers.
all day, so I'm here for it.
Wiley, Steve's, I'm Steve's my mentor. He's going that way.
It's 2008. We are fired up and ready to go.
All right, well, I want to say thank you all so much for everything you've given us tonight. A lot to think about, some good action items for us, and I hope that we've given you some things to think about as well. We will stick around for another 15, 20 minutes, and as we're kind of cleaning up a little bit and just have some talk, open discussion, walk around, stretch the legs. But I think that this part of the meeting we can call to a close unless there's anyone who has a burning last thing they need to say.
I do.
Thank you.
I have something very burning. So I need to preface a little bit about my background. I grew up in Southern Illinois, very rural part, very conservative part, and I consider myself a reformed conservative. I grew up in a conservative household. I was probably conservative until I was 18. If I remember correctly, I think in 2008 I voted Republican. And then in 2012, I voted Democrat. I made a switch. I would say I made a switch, so therefore I'm really, really passionate about trying to make switches elsewhere. Missouri is very red, and I have friends that are still in Southern Illinois in very red spots, and I'm telling you, people in rural counties are wanting to change. For example, I have a friend who is on the county council in Washington County. He had I guess there was a proposal out there for some wind in some rural parts. Farmland would have been subsidized. It was a really good deal for the landowners. The county council shut it down, even though it was going to make $3 million worth of revenue for the county. They didn't care. And they even put it towards conservative values of business. It makes sense for getting more money into government. They framed it all well, and it got overwhelmingly shut down. So one of my questions is when it comes to green initiatives in Missouri and winning in counties that are red, how are we going to get down to the county level? And how are we going to win on those county levels? Because we can make as much legislation and make it as easy as possible for businesses to do business in the state of Missouri. But if the county councils keep shutting that down, how do we get past that? And then also, second part of that question is, there's chances to flip. What are we doing as a Democratic Party? Teach those people who are fed up with the Republican Party and the GOP and turning it into the GDP and everything like that. They go to Democrat because we still have this thing that Democrats can't govern and they can't organize. How do we get past that? And how do we turn some of these red state or red counties that are dozens, it's a votes of dozens, how do we flip those to blue?
Find common ground.
May I?
How do you find conservation?
How old are you?
I'm 30.
For the Lucas Coons campaign, I am now handling the outreach to every single county level organization in the state, in addition to being based in St. Louis and trying to meet with everybody here. And I can tell you very much that we have enthusiastic reception everywhere in the state. Everywhere Lucas goes with a message of anti-monopoly, anti-corruption, for the power of everyday Missourians, we get an enthusiastic reception. I'm currently planning a trip down through the Boot Heel in late June. We are going through southeast Missouri. We've got working on a rural hospital visit at a hospital that closed down in Audrain County, which is kind of central northeast Missouri. We're going everywhere. And I think one of the things that is really exciting about this campaign is that Lucas is just really passionate about rural people and about the state of Missouri writ large. And one of the ways that I think you can build traction for the Democratic Party in Missouri is to build enthusiasm for change through a top-tier Senate candidate at the top of the ticket to build momentum for the rest of the candidates in this party. Jason Kander got within 3 points of beating, who was it, in 2016? Jason Kander lost by 3 points against Roy Blunt in this race. Now, Roy Blunt is retiring. I think our best chance at beating Eric Greitens, Eric Schmidt, or Vicky Hartzler in the state is Coons at the top of the ticket. And I think that's one of the ways, one very exciting way that I'm excited to talk to you about, that we build power in the state. Is get a candidate that can speak for
From my perspective of crossing the state, what I've seen is people want broadband, infrastructure, and they want to secure fiber optics.
I'll second all those.
I hear it all over the state, especially in the rural areas. Why do we get left out? I hear that so much. Why do the urban core, suburban core, get all the road money, infrastructure money? And I'm like, well, we got to take a look at that. We have to take a look at that. Because those rural areas, they want good streets, highways, curbing, all that wonderful stuff too. They want broadband, they want fiber optics, they want all these items too. They want it. And so when I'm listening to them, one of the things they want too is a voice. And I leaned over, wow. And so I want to emphasize that they want to be heard and they want someone to tell their message over and over. They don't want to be left out. And so many of them feel we've been leaving them out. Why are we neglecting them? Over and over, wherever I go, I keep hearing it. Over and over. Don't give me the preaching, I am a minister, so we can go on.
In fact, I would hit on that because the infrastructure is key. These rural areas are farm. Part of why Missouri is such a profitable state. The waterways, barges, that the roads, the highways, they're not just for us in the city, back and forth. They're really how we get our products to market. I used to build water treatment equipment right here in St. Louis, all over the world. So I can appreciate that. We need this infrastructure to build our state. And I think we've said that there are several common ground areas that I think we can pull them in on. The high-speed internet, the broadband, making sure that we make that available, the infrastructure, the roads, the waterways, making sure, I think they, just like that we are spending this money efficiently. I think these are universal messages, and I think they resonate in the cities and in rural areas. So great question. Excellent.
Can I add one short thing? Just the evacuation of government services and investment from rural Missouri and rural places all around the country allows a vacuum for corporate concentration that we are specifically running against. One of the things Lucas likes to harp on a lot is, for instance, Smithfield has basically donated to like everybody in the state, and they basically made it so that they, a Chinese-owned company, buy Missouri agricultural land, and so things like that are, I think, the kind of things that we're pissed off about, and I think a lot of in the rural areas are also pissed off about. I think we intend to win.
If I don't know this word on this, I know you're trying to cover.
I am trying to wrap up, yeah.
I could talk on this forever. Of course, this is what I do.
The Democratic chair.
Yeah.
Let's talk to this guy.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk after this. Yes, I think, and I hate to always quote Greg because I win and a half. Greg says, he's told me for 10 years I've been in politics, 90% of politics is just showing up. And the one thing we haven't done as a party, you I know come from rural areas, is show up in rural areas, especially in Missouri. It's one thing that if I can talk on the horn of one of our kids, that Lucas Coach is doing better than a lot of kids have done in the past decades, he's showing up. But showing up is not enough in rural Missouri. It's having a extended presence outside the campaign season, continual presence. We have a lot of long-term work to do. And then quickly with that is, Alan was describing a lot of folks in rural Missouri don't feel voiceless. I think it's important to understand that a lot of rural Missourians and rural Democrats across the country, rural people across the country, see themselves as a minority group. I feel I relate to them a little. We see in Jefferson City to relate to rural legislators a little more because as African Americans, we feel like a minority group. We have to see some out of rural Missouri the same way, as if they're not the majority and they're not being heard. Because of that, it's important for us not to determine what their issues are for them, but let them determine what their issues are. I'd like to talk to you because we want to create permanent infrastructure in rural Missouri that speaks for itself and not have academics and St. Louis City elected officials tell them what is the best message for them. And we just were on a call while I'm late here. We're investing money into offices. I didn't say that.
This union organization, legislation provides skill building on deep canvassing and political education, and that's something